Hey Phil, how you doing?
Good, thank you.
Good, okay. Cast your mind back to 2008. It's been quite a few years ago, and you're still playing, of course. Your initial England call-up. Were you aware that you were on the verge of a call-up?
There was little rumours. I'd managed to play a B international at Turf Moor. Came on at right back, funnily enough, at the time. But you know, you're playing games. I'd just obviously come out of playing for Sheffield. I'd just gone to Everton and things, and you're hoping, you know, that would be enough to kick on. But there was a double header at the end of the season. It was 2 friendlies, USA at home, and then there was a trip to Trinidad and Tobago. There was something going on that we needed some sort of votes and stuff. So I think there was a reason why we ended up going there. And as you can imagine, the lads that were playing Champions League football and long seasons, they were sort of given the option to go to Trinidad and Tobago. A few people were arrested, a few people didn't make the trip. A couple of obviously of the big names turned up as well, and off we went to Trinidad and Tobago, and desperate to get some sort of game time. Unfortunately for me, I didn't get to start, but thankfully I managed to get on. Funnily enough, Cameron Jones was obviously playing at the time. He got injured, yeah, thankfully, because he was a big boy. He was on fire at the time, so it was nice. I think he collided with David James and ended up going off. But no, it was a great trip for me. You know, personally getting on, getting my debut. Only issue was afterwards we'd made 8 subs, and there was a time where I think FIFA were trying to make sure you couldn't make any more than 6 because they were trying to stop, you know, like the slowing down of the game when there's like 15 subs made. But we'd agreed with Trinidad and Tobago that it was an open. So I think by the time we took off, my cap wasn't going to count, and by the time we landed, they'd all figured it out, and thankfully. You know, my cap had counted and my signed shirt and everything. I've still got framed. So yeah, that was the first cap.
So where were you when you first got the call that you were going to be in that squad?
Just at home. You know, you sort of got whispers that they were going to make a bigger squad. Like I say, there were 2 friendly games. When your sort of name gets sort of dotted about, you know, potentially you're going to get a call up and things. You always hope. Don't get too excited, but when it was done, it was great. You know, going initially into the training sessions and going there, a little bit nerve-wracking, but I knew a few people obviously playing against them and playing with them, so it was as comfortable as being uncomfortable could be. I
was going to ask you about the nerves. I'd imagine there were some big characters in and around there. How did they look after you? Just speak to me about how nervous you were, you know, with these guys.
Yeah, I think. You know, I wasn't a teenager. I'd been, you know, obviously I'd played a lot of games, I'd played a lot of football, but you know, these people were still even idols or people you looked up to. Yeah. You know, the majority of my early career I was playing in the Championship, I was watching the Premier League. You know, the things I was aspiring to. But same again, I'd played under 20s, under 21s with a few of the lads, and it's funny, you do get nervous and anxious, but when you actually get there, you realise that you're all pretty similar. You know, you're all grown men, you're all playing football, you're all probably a little bit childish, a little bit big kids and all sorts. You know, there's slightly different characters amongst the squad, but more often than not, very similar. So it's a case of sort of getting past that. I'm quite an outgoing person, I'm not too shy, not too quiet, so there's a fine balance there. You don't want to go into a squad straight away and be too leery, but you know, thankfully for me, there was enough people around there that I could go to, I could sit next to on a bus, I could have a chat with, I could make sure I wasn't late for meetings, etc.
Who would you go to? Who you know, your first kind of chats in that England squad?
I don't know, you got like obviously like Jermaine Defoe's had played against, Stephen Warnock, you know, there's quite a few of us that were of similar age that were getting their first sort of opportunities. So yeah, like it's safety in numbers sometimes, you know, like you'd sort of look, you know, you didn't want to take anyone's seat on the bus, but once you'd got past sort of the first week, you realise like no one's out there to get you. Yeah. It's just, you know, you sort of put these little things in your head yourself.
Can you remember any of your like first training sessions with there? Anything happened? Just, I suppose from a performance point of view, you just wanted just to be.
Well, yeah, you
don't make any sense.
Yeah, exactly. It's probably a different mentality now, where people will probably want to go in there and actually stand out and want to show what they've got. But I think obviously in my position, it's probably more about not making mistakes and being unnoticed means you've had a good session. So no, there was nothing weird and wonderful, you know. The thing I did notice, obviously the speed, the technical ability of some of the players was a little bit higher, but you know, I was playing at a good club, I was playing at a good level myself, so it wasn't like I'd jumped 5 or 6 levels and I struggled, but as you said, all you want to do is, turn up for training, make sure you've got everything, make sure your boots are there, make sure everything, and just make sure the day goes well, and then just move on to the next one.
So what was it like then, putting on that England shirt for the first time? Must have been immensely proud.
Yeah, massively. It's the red one. I've still got it obviously put up. You can't really describe it. You're in there and you're playing football, and you sort of get used to playing football, and then getting on the pitch, getting told to warm up, lads, you'll be coming on. And then there was obviously quite a few of us sharing sort of similar emotions, and yeah, it was great. I think once I'd had that, it was all about then, trying to hang around the England squad for as long as possible, and then trying to get some appearances in. My first start, funnily enough, I wasn't due to start, but Rio hurt his back in sort of just before the warm-up, and then he was thrust upon me to play Spain away. I actually had a pretty good first half, but unfortunately gave the ball away for them then to go and score, and got brought off half-time. Got a little bit of a telling off from Fabio Capello. That was his managing type. He would demand, he'd tell you what he wanted, and he wouldn't shift away from that. There was definitely black and white, and in a lot of training sessions there'd be a lot of pulling you into position, telling you exactly where he wanted you. And I heard his tonsils, felt his tonsils at half time against Spain, and it was a difficult one to take. I don't think I played for a year or so afterwards, but all part and parcel of the development.
Were you aware that Rio had a slight injury, or was it just like out the blue, bang, you're going to be playing? And how did you feel at that time? Were you nervous? Were you thinking, brilliant?
We'd gone down for you sort of have a walk and stuff, and then a nerve start. You're relaxed, you're going to be on the bench, might get on, the nerves can start probably during the start of the game. You always keep an eye out for your position if you have to go warm up. But yeah, they did start a little bit earlier. We were playing against Spain, and it was the team of Spain. In Seville, and you'd start to swear a bit more, and you start to get a bit anxious, but it's all part and parcel. Like this, I say I can look back and I can still be happy with my performance. I'd like to have passed the ball 3 yards further right, and it'd have gone to Michael Carrick instead of through him, and then maybe got a tackle in. But football is a game like that. There's if, buts and maybes, and I can't really complain. I'm still going, I'm still playing, and there's been lots of great memories along the way.
Okay, walking out at Wembley for the first time in an England shirt, speak to me about that. Lifelong dream, I suppose, as a kid. Did you think about playing for England as a kid?
You sort of do and don't. I think a lot of players say they do, but for me, that was, you obviously have big dreams, but it's an absolute galaxy away. I was at Everton as a young lad, got released, ended up going to Sheffield, and I say I'm trying to find a career playing in the Championship, playing in midfield, ended up at right back, centre back. So I'm still trying to find my feet. And then fast forward 4 or 5 years, and like you say, I'm getting to go out there. So
do you remember your first start? Your first competitive start was against Bulgaria.
I couldn't have told you that, to be perfectly honest. There's been but I think by then I'd have obviously been in and around the setup for a little while. So same again, those friendly faces and the people like you got to know, and the competitive nature and qualifying was never a problem for England. Never has been. I've been part of some very successful campaigns. I think the hardest one we had to beat Poland at home to qualify and stuff. But it was always a bit more relaxed. We were always going to have probably more of the ball than the team we were playing against. So I think the atmosphere was always relaxed. I think obviously as soon as it got to sort of tournament football, it got hyped up, and then the heat was on. But no, playing there, I've been lucky enough to play there, not only obviously for my country but for my club as well. And it would have been nice to have played at the old Wembley. I think that's you look at like the games you watch growing up. You always much. The old
FA Cup finals. I remember as a kid.
Exactly, and all the stuff like that. But same again, timing wise, I've been fortunate enough to play in the new sort of multi-million-pound stadium. So I'm not complaining, but it would have been nice to have ticked that box. But going out there, playing for your country, I've managed to score there as well. So
Peru?
Yes. So
come on, the keeper dropped it. I could have scored that, couldn't I?
Right time, right place, and San Marino as well. There's two there, so you got to give me a little bit of credit. But
and Italy as well, which were the
Italy was away. Yeah, that was in Switzerland. That was a neutral venue. But yeah, it's something no one can take away from you. Like when you start talking about aspirations and dreams, once you're in there, you obviously want to play as many times as you can. You want to go to tournaments. You want to score a goal. You want to have these memories. I was fortunate enough to lead the team out as well, away from home. So all this stuff, I've said for many years. I'll look back once I've finished playing and probably enjoy it.
When will you finish playing? You're going to go on forever.
That's the $1 million question. My golf's suffering and my memory bank's suffering. But like I say, I'm, as you can tell by the smile on my face, it's something I'm really, really proud of, and hopefully my family are too.
I've got a trivia question from your debut.
Uh-oh.
Okay. It was your first cap.
Yeah.
There was one other player there were two other players who had their first caps that day.
Yeah.
Can you name any of them? One was a goalkeeper.
Yes, I was about to say the keeper. Right. Oh my gosh. It can't be Joe.
Yeah.
Joe Hart, yeah.
Joe Hart had his first cap. And Dean Ashton had his only cap.
Oh, is that his only cap?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I knew there was quite a few of us at the same time.
Right, let's talk about life at the World Cup. So, of course, you've been there 2014. How did you receive the news that you'd actually been called into the squad? Do you remember being told?
Yeah, just as obviously a normal sort of phone call. The text obviously comes through eventually, but you pretty much knew I was a sort of a shoe in there. I think it's the same again when you're involved and you've been in the routine and you're expecting a text. I think it's a little bit different. I'd obviously had good dialogue, throughout and stuff, and the qualifying campaign went really well. So there was no reason for me not to be in the squad. I remember driving my little boy to footy training, and when the group came out, I'm thinking, wow. And they called it a group of death or whatever. It was never going to be the easiest one. There was talk obviously about playing in Manaus, which was going to be basically in the jungle. So there was loads of sort of things that weren't going to go our way, and unfortunately it didn't really in the tournament. It was a frustrating time. A little bit transitional. A few younger players that were coming through the squad that would go on and have probably played 50, 100 times afterwards. But unfortunately for us, we just couldn't get the results in the first two games. So
the mood going into it,
it was positive. It was positive. Yeah, we went to America when we prepared really well.
Miami, you went to.
Miami, yeah.
Do you remember? Sorry to put you on the spot again. Somebody got sent off.
Yes.
In that game.
Yes.
Still playing in the Premier League today.
Yes. Wait a sec.
It was against
Young. I'm going to say Ashley Young. No.
No.
Oh my! I remember him losing his head. He absolutely lost his head. I need more of a clue, please.
Chelsea.
Still playing at Chelsea. Oh my gosh.
He was a kid at Liverpool. Gone for big money. His first name's Raheem.
Sorry, I don't think, Oh yeah, so okay, So there was it happened in front of the bench. I didn't play, and it happened, There was something.
So what happened then? Did he just...
I think it was a bad tackle and a bit of a push and a shove, and then he ended up getting sent off or something. There was something Raheem wasn't happy with. Everything going forward to the tournament was brilliant. We had a Portugal camp, we had a Miami camp. We got over there. With a good hotel, fantastic training facilities. We'd been there previously. I don't know if it was a year or 2 years before to play Brazil in American R and all sorts. So we're familiar with the surroundings and all sorts, but the way the group came out was tough. And even then, the way we just about lost the first game put us under the pump, and then to have lost the second game again. Two really good teams, obviously Italy and Uruguay. Then the last game was always going to be a bit of a dead rubber. The manager moved it around a little bit, and obviously the Costa Rica game. But it was a tough one to take. It was probably my worst feeling quite obviously as an England player, and I'd never thought I'd look back at it as a positive, but ever since I've sort of got older and looked back and realised, it's something to be proud of. I remember meeting Roberto Martinez and Graham Jones. They were over there, and obviously they were talking to me and Leighton at the time, and I was adamant it was a disaster. It was like I wouldn't look at it with any sort of like fondness, but they were right. As you sort of get older and all sorts, it is really still a very proud moment for me to have gone to a World Cup. I'd have liked better results, but I say it's still up there as one of my biggest achievements as a player.
I mean, you touched on there about the base that they had, the England. I mean, from clearly, like a football fan like me, we don't know what goes on. Are there certain strict rules there at the base where you go to as a team, or is it a bit jovial? Is it boring? Well,
I think that's the thing that sort of transitioned throughout sort of my time and towards the end. I think they realised that when you go away for a week or 10 days, it can go quite quickly. But if you start looking over 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. There needs to be some sort of normality. You need activities to do. You need to have a bit of a break. Like I say, we're all big kids. We're trying to play cricket indoors with
anyone sneaking out
with a snooker cue. No, everything was professional. So like I say, we'd be playing table tennis with random objects and around the table, or playing cricket with a snooker cue, and like obviously there was a big kids, and obviously some of the lads kept themselves, watched DVDs or series and things like that. But I think as it progressed, and lads got more comfortable being with each other and things, the togetherness was natural. It's a lot easier, and I've said before, squad sizes over the course of the last 20 years have changed massively. So being involved in 20-25 people in squads is normal for most first teams, whereas when I started, the squad was 18-19 players. So it's pretty normal now, and like you say, the lads have got similar tastes, similar ideas, similar hobbies, and I think the FA itself took a conscious effort to make sure there was enough going on, whereas normally all there'd ever be is a dartboard, table tennis, pool table, then there's like figure the rest out yourself. Whereas now obviously there's gaming, there's like coffee places, like lads, everything's sort of moved forward. So fair play to them. They've obviously looked at the way the lads can feel most comfortable, even with days off and getting families involved and all sorts. They've been a bit more relaxed, knowing that, like I say, the players are, I won't say a lot more professional, but they realise that the games come thick and fast, and say they're not going to go out and have a 2-day bender if they're given a couple of days off. It's the way football is these days. It's very regimented and very strict, but with the onus sort of being thrown at the players' toes.
Were there any cliques back then, North, South, or Liverpool, Man United? Were there anything that springs to mind?
I've always laughed because there's always cliques. If I know you from another club, or if I play golf with you, or we live in the same area, or we've got a common friend, you always gravitate and sit with people. Yeah. It for me is how unwelcoming a clique can be, or and I never found that. I always found, obviously, the Chelsea boys would potentially sit with the Chelsea boys, the Man U sit with the Chelsea, but it's not like they'd turn their back on each other and would refuse to speak to each other. It's just naturally, I ended up spending quite a lot of time with the Man City boys, because the most of them are northern, and of my age I played them in the 20s and things like that, but it wasn't because I didn't want to associate myself with anyone south of Birmingham. It was just the way it is. And I think, I think now, if you look at obviously the England team now, there's a big mixture. There's 4, 5, 6 teams that are competing for the cups and the top honours. When I was coming through, there was probably Man U, Chelsea. That would be probably the two. That were then obviously Man City broke through. So, but now I think there's more of a mix and everything, and the lads socialise from anywhere in the country, which can only help.
Who was you pally with in that World Cup?
Well, sort of like I said, the Man City boys. So I'd obviously Joe Hart, Millie, played a lot of golf with James Milner at the time. So like it's just sort of that little gang. You'd turn up to the games room, and like I say, there was some lads that were very good at table tennis, and they'd have to take me on as a partner. They'd mix it round, and then obviously on the golf course I'd get my own back and stuff. But it was the way of passing time and having a laugh and a joke. And like I say, some lads wouldn't entertain it, and they prefer their own space. But I think that's the main thing about going away as a squad, is making sure. I've seen on the TV that the hotel that obviously England have chose, they've got nice little courtyards where they can have a coffee in 2 or 3 of them sit together if everyone else is busy or do whatever. And there's also obviously common space where they can have 20, 30 people in there and a laugh and a joke. So I think it's important that every individual is sort of catered for, but at the same extent, if everyone needs to come together, they should do, and I'm sure they will. Hopefully they're going to be there for a very long time. It's a little bit strange being in the middle of the season, but that was always going to be the case once Qatar got the rights.
Biggest joker? There must be a few who used to like a little bit of a laugh and a joke back in that squad.
Yeah, there was quite a few. Yeah, but everyone sort of played a role.
Come on, you can name some names. Oh, no. You can name names.
Jermaine Defoe had loads of stories. Millie's a funny one because he's seen as being quite straight and thingy, but he could be a big kid. Everyone played their own little role at certain times. There was no absolute like prat, if you like, that everyone would come to. Like everyone would just dig in their own little bit, and I think that made it easier. So you would never know exactly who's done what. Do you know what I mean? Rather than the finger pointing straight at one person. So as I said before, we're all grown men, but at the same extent, big kids at heart.
Okay, let's talk about that opening Italy game then, shall we? Were you given the nod? How long before were you told, right, you're starting against Italy?
I think you sort of know. Squad numbers were given out. We'd done a little bit of shape beforehand, and the preparation sort of the day before sort of confirms it. It was a bit of a strange one. We obviously lost the game, but we came out of it. The press were quite, I won't use the word happy, but impressed. We'd gone with the sort of an attacking four, Wayne off the left, Sturridge, Raheem and Danny Welbeck, and we went there to get a positive result. You know, a lot of the times people said Roy was quite defensive with his structure, and they were desperate in the tournament to go out there and win games. We played pretty well, but unfortunately come unstuck and lost by a goal. And coming off the pitch, it was a hard thing to get your head around, because we knew there was a 3-game little round robin. You know, a third of it's gone already. World Cup that you've always dreamt about playing in's hanging on by a thread, and you know you're looking at how other games and results are going, and it was all a bit of a whirlwind. So I say happy is not the right word, and totally disappointed again wouldn't have been the word. We just knew that we had to go to the next game, and realistically,
that was Uruguay, wasn't it?
Yeah, realistically looking back, if we'd have drew, we'd have give ourselves a chance, but we were in that mindset that we had to go and win. And same again, just I think me and Steve often up for the same. I went to Suarez, who basically whatever he did that season came off and took it to the byline and scored. And you know they got blocking shots, blocking cross. It just felt like one of those days. And then obviously as soon as we got on the bus after that one, we weren't totally out of the tournament by then. We needed another result to go our way, and then win by about 3,000 goals against Costa Rica. But we pretty much knew we were waiting for that. And then I think we found out the next day, and it was like, we've got 4 or 5 days left in Brazil. Like, not what's the point, but it was sort of exactly gut wrenching. And
a lot of time then, I think, to think about your time at the World Cup. Did you analyse your performance, things you could have done better?
Yeah, well, there was a game still to go, so we had to still get that, and it was a case of it was really tough to go to a training ground, and normally that's where you put all your effort, all your concentration, and what we need to do for this game, and it was almost like, okay, we're going to a game, but we'd love to, we could do with winning, but no matter what we do, the objective's gone. So it was really, really, really flat and strange, and obviously you're miles away from home. It's not like it's going to be an hour flight. It was a long time. You had to wait for the next day and all sorts. So it was just a general sort of, I don't know, just a slow burner to get home, wonder what the reception is going to be like home. Then you're trying to book a holiday to get your mind off it and things like that. And then obviously before you know it, you're back at pre-season. So it was a really tough one to take. The fact knowing that. If we'd have played really poorly in the 2 games and got beat easily and then gone home, obviously you'd have still been annoyed, but you'd have said, okay, fair enough. But to have performed well enough to get something better out of those games and it just not happen was really frustrating. It was a tough watch to watch the rest of the World Cup. For me, I didn't watch too many games. Tried to get on holiday and not think about it. And I'm still proud as anything that I've been to a World Cup, but as I said before, I'd have preferred it if my record was a little bit better.
So you played under Fabio Capello and Roy Hodgson for England. How do their styles differ?
Well, quite drastically. I don't know about so much on the pitch and tactically, but I think of as personalities and warmth. I think Roy was clever when he came in. He realised that we come from sort of a regime of sort of like being told exactly what to do, where to be, everything. And I think he realised that he had some very talented players and give them a little bit more freedom. Not just tactically, just generally day to day. And I think we spoke about camps before. Sometimes with the Capello camp, it's absolutely fine if you're playing. Yeah. But if you're not playing, even this most regimented, meal times, this and this. So it becomes not a stress and a grind, but it becomes a bit more. Even training's not quite as fun because everything's. And then obviously Roy came in. He was a bit more fluid with things. Even the staff around him were a little bit more warm towards you.
Yeah.
And it made the camp not as sort of, I won't say stressful, but not, so that the atmosphere changed slightly. Obviously Fabio came in and that was his style because he felt like England had the potential to go and win things, and the key ingredient was maybe a little bit of, I don't even know what, I'm not sure what the word is, but like, he just wasn't prepared to let anything go. It was very, like I said, there was no grey area at all. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'm sure that can work for a short space of time, but if you're with people for a long, long time, some people are going to get annoyed, frustrated, and maybe that's why we didn't get the best out of them. Tactically, how were they different? Yeah, there was different elements, how you'd mark your man, how you'd build up from the back, and where people would stand, but they both had their own ideas. Roy would put it across, and Ray would put it across, and encourage you to do things, whereas as I've said before, Fabio was pretty much do this. At the time, I think obviously with Fabio there was the debate about where do you play Scholes and Lampard together, blah blah blah, and all sorts, and I think he probably put the restraints on a couple of players that never had that restraints put on them before, whereas obviously when Roy came, he either picked one, didn't pick another, and realised that he was picking the player that was going to play the same way he played for club. So I say there wasn't a massive difference, but I think towards the end, obviously Roy was picking a few younger players and trying to progress forward that way, which probably helped in the end when Gareth came in. He'd had younger players that had played quite a few games for England. It wasn't a new thing, and it was easy for him then to bring sort of that sort of style through in stage where they can be a bit more expressive. Right, Phil, I've got an England Q&A for you. You ready for this? I'll have to be, won't I? Yeah. Who was the best striker that you've faced on the international stage? Ooh. So I'd have to probably say either Torres or Lewandowski, probably. No Suarez or Balotelli, of course? You're trying to forget that World Cup. To be fair, Suarez will be up there. I played against Benzema as well, but I played right back that game, so I'm not going to continue with that one. Okay, who's the best player that you played alongside for England? I think the two that stand out is probably Wayne and Stevie G. Those were the two. Two amazing talents. The standards that those two set were fantastic. Okay, who's the one player that you wished you played alongside for England? I wish I had. Well, Gareth Southgate, you can say that, can't you? Obviously, probably with Rio a bit more, but I played right back once alongside him, but I never actually got to play as a middle pair. I looked up to him growing up, so I think it would have been nice to have had a chance to play alongside him. Okay, what was the hardest match that you played on the international stage? The toughest one. I spoke about that right back. We played France. I'd not been well as well for the week, and I got chucked in at right back, so I wouldn't say I knew what I was doing for most of the game there, but that was a really tough one. Some amazing players. We played against a couple of the Spain teams as well. We didn't get much of the ball, but we had some pretty decent results. So either one of the Spain games or maybe that French game. And the best memory playing for England? Probably three. Obviously, getting on against Trinidad and Tobago, making obviously a debut, captain. Away from home, we'd won every game in qualifying, and scoring my first goal. It's always nice to get on the score sheet, and that was very special. And the best atmosphere? Remember the best atmosphere in that game in the international stage? Probably one we needed to qualify. Last game of the group, Stevie G came up with a winner. You don't get as many cup tie atmospheres when you play in international football, especially at Wembley and things. But when it was a must-win game, definitely that was it. Best anecdote from the England squad? Have you got a little story that you can share with us all? Not particularly, no. Come on, you can. No, nothing I'd like to repeat. No. What's that? What? Yeah. What goes on in the England squad stays in the England squad. Yeah. I've always old school mentality, isn't it? You've got out of that well. Yeah. You've got out of well. Do you have any regrets from your time with the England national team? Not at all. I think I was fortunate enough to be in and around the squad for a long, long time. You always want to play more, you always want to contribute more, but I got to play for my country 40 times. Got some fantastic memories. Played at a World Cup. Would have liked to have had a better record, but there's plenty of boxes ticked there, and I'm very proud.
Phil, you've had a great career. You still have a great career as well. Long may that continue.
Cheers. Thanks a lot. Cheers.